G'day everybody, it's Danny here from Turunga, and today we're gonna totally annihilate this novel, which is also a Netflix film. Let's go! Hi, my name is Danny and welcome to Turunga. This is a channel all about sharing the love and passion for story writing, creating cool characters, exploring cool worlds, and even doing a little bit of drawing on the side. Today we are going to be looking at a novel by Jeff Vandermeer called Annihilation, the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy. You might have heard Annihilation before because it is also a Netflix film featuring Natalie Portman. The story of Annihilation is about 4 women who go on an expedition into a zone called Area X. It's an area kind of along the coast of the country that has been blocked off to the public for about 3 decades. The women are going on their 12th expedition. There have been 11 other expeditions before, and the main character who tells the story kind of through the scientific journal that she writes is called The Biologist, and her husband was part of the 11th expedition, which didn't end up going so well. In this book, none of the characters have names. They're all referred to as titles, job titles in fact. So the main character is the biologist, then you've got the psychologist, the surveyor, and the anthropologist. And what happens in the story is these 4 women go and try and find out what's happening in Area X, and their job is to report on what they've seen and what they've experienced and try and convey this information back to the people on the other side of the border. Now, because Area X kind of has this sense of mystery surrounding it, no one really knows what's going on in there. I think one of the hypotheses that they've had is that this Area X kind of started when a comet hit the Earth. There's a few different theories that kind of get circulated, but there's not really one core idea as to why this is all happening. Now, this book is what I like to call a scientific horror book, where as you read the book, you just get this sense of dread that kind of overwhelms you as you read every single chapter. I like Annihilation because I've got a science background and I love studying microbiology at university, and just seeing how the book takes the concept of living organisms and infuses it into this thrilling storyline is something that just really comes out so clearly and vividly in this book. At one point in the story, the women go and explore what appears to be like a tower, but actually the tower's kind of mostly buried in the ground, and there's a whole section of the book where these characters are exploring this staircase and they see writing on the wall that's kind of written with these fungal spores, and one of the characters breathes in the fungal spores, and that kind of reveals something about the group to her because she has these fungal spores. The twists about what the characters' true intentions and the fact that the characters kind of don't trust each other. So the psychologist is there to kind of guide them through psychologically and make them feel calm about their expedition. And there are some really cool twists that are associated with each of the characters, which I think plays with your mind a little bit. There's one part of the book where they go to the lighthouse, and in this lighthouse there are some major revelations about what is going on in Area X that's revealed. You feel like you're kind of walking in the shoes of the biologist, and the way the writing is written in this book is it's kind of like as if you're walking into a new place for the first time, taking observational notes, looking at different organisms and species, and kind of gathering your observations and interpreting them as you go. And that's kind of how I would describe the writing style. Each section is kind of observational notes about what the biologist sees and experiences. Then you kind of get to shift into her mind and go, ooh, this is how she's interpreted that situation, and this is how she thinks about that character. And then as it gets to the end of the chapter, Jeff Vandermeer has this really great ability to just punch the points through. You kind of get this little bit of description at the beginning of the chapter, a few little events, and then the punchline comes thick and strong. And I don't think it's I think the bit that makes you feel that sense of dread is that revelation that appears at every single chapter. something new is kind of introduced or kind of fed to you as the reader, and you're like, whoa, didn't expect that, or whoa, that just completely changed my perception of what is happening in the story. And I think the peeling of the layers is something that I really thoroughly enjoyed. Now, when it comes to crafting good characters, Annihilation does it from a very different approach. I like the fact that the biologist has history with Area X. She's got a motivation to go there. She's got some unfinished and unresolved business. Now, in the story, you kind of get snippets of her life before, in the outside world, when she was with her husband, before he went on the 11th expedition, but also when he came back from the 11th expedition, and how her observations of her relationship with this husband before and after his expedition is kind of like this social experiment. And the way the book kind of weaves that into the current situation that she's in makes the story lift. In terms of the science behind some of the biology in the story Annihilation, I would like to say that kind of is borderline between fantasy and fiction. And I would say definitely the book is heading more down the science fiction path in terms of what if we had organisms from other places come and land on Earth? How would they survive? How would they fit into the existing ecosystem that we would have here? And so Annihilation has really strong themes of environment, environmental protection, environmental evolution, and I just love it how some authors are willing to take that risk of exploring a scientific concept from a fantasy point of view. And I really felt like I was on the expedition as a fifth member, following these people as they explored the tower and the lighthouse. And there was something about me feeling like I was part of this party. And I think that's what makes it feel so scary, is that what happens to them, you feel like it's happening to you. I love the meta in this book. The fact that the book is a journal, and then you can take yourself out of the journal, and then as you step back into the story, you're reading the biologist and seeing how she has recorded her experiences in her journal. That level of inception between the characters definitely flows through. So in terms of my criticisms, there is a fine line between reality and fantasy. And I think when you're trying to write a scientifically driven story, there is a fine line that you can cross when the story becomes less scientific and more fantasy based. And I think in the third act, the book tends to waver a little bit. And I think it went one step too far in a direction that made me kind of feel like, oh, am I still in the real world, or is this completely something that I'm missing the point on? And I think part of this story and what it tries to achieve is it tries to present an alternate scientific philosophy and theory. And I think by doing so, it kind of undoes itself in the third act. There are quite a lot of unanswered questions. You just want to know the answer to everything. And I know that with fictional stories, they can't answer everything. You've got to kind of decide for yourself, oh, that's what that meant, or that's what that particular thing represented in the story. And I think that's the fun thing about reading fiction, is being able to do that. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about the other character histories, and I think that would have explained a bit more of the motivations behind the other characters in the party. And sometimes the characters would react in certain ways and be like, oh, why did that character choose to do that? Why did they choose to make that choice? What was their story? So in considering my final verdict, Annihilation is a really powerful and gripping story of biological horror and searching for those lost, unanswered questions. Sometimes the book does leave you feeling a little bit like, ooh, why did that happen? And you've still got more questions. But I just absolutely love how the characters came to life in this. The sense of dread that you feel as you read every chapter is definitely a gripping and thrilling story. It's definitely one that I would recommend, and I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5. It's one of the best reads that I've made this year, and I'm so glad that I got to read the book even though I'd seen the film. Thank you once again for joining me for another Turunga book review. If you really like my videos, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to this channel, and I look forward to bringing you more story-based character content soon. This is Danny signing out. Hope your next book is a great one. Goodbye.